Hello, everybody, and welcome to the March 3rd episode of Trips and Traps. I'm Andy Serling, joined by Eric Donovan.
Good to be back. It seems like a couple months since I've done an episode of Trips and Traps, but come back to a week where it was pretty much dominated by inside speed.
Right. We had only, of course, 3 days of racing with all the snow in the area. We canceled on Friday and Saturday. We didn't find any particularly great horses to look out for. More the idea of who to bet against in the future, or how to evaluate these races. And pretty much we're just going to show you races that were dominating the front end, not necessarily by horses in a fairly run race on a fairly run racetrack that were the best horses. But we'll start out and we'll show the only sprint of this episode, and this is the 7th race from the 24th.
Yeah, we want to look at two horses in here, the 8 AFLEET ALEXANDRA and the 9 Zip of Fools. The race is won by Tempest Storm, going wire to wire on the front on the number 2 horse. And there's Zip of Fools, who does have some early speed, but breaking toward the back of the pack here. That certainly put her behind the 8 ball. And we'll see AFLEET ALEXANDRA toward the outside, and the blue substitute Silks there just getting a 3 wide, 4 wide chasing trip early on here. And when you're dealing with inside speed favoring tracks, if you're a speed horse, you don't want to get left, and you also don't want to be chasing 3 or 4 wide.
Absolutely. And AFLEET ALEXANDRA was a horse. She was probably the favorite. She was a heavy favorite, 7-5 in this race, and she is the best horse in this race on paper. Whether she wins or not is another story. Tempest Storm, a horse that Carl Domino's taken over the training of. Primarily, we knew this horse was a turf sprinter, and Gary Contessa had her for a while. She just got clear. There was some other speed in here, but she has extreme speed. It's just another example of the racetrack carrying a horse more than anything else. And here's poor AFLEET ALEXANDRA trying to make her move on the outside. Yeah,
this 3 wide move just seldom works on tracks like this where the inside is golden. And we'll even see the second horse, Crazy Thing, who was almost 20-1 in this race, just run 1-2 here with Tempest Storm. And we'll highlight Zip of Fools there toward the back, who's getting in a little bit of traffic trouble after that problem at the start. And then AFLEET ALEXANDRA, who's 3 wide, chasing on the outside here. And the race unfolds in the same manner it kind of developed with Tempest Storm and Crazy Thing running 1-2 right down to the wire.
Yeah, I guess Ramon just figured he wasn't getting anything anyway. The best he could do was try to come up the inside. It certainly wasn't going to work out going outside. But look, Zip of Fools didn't have much of a chance in this race regardless. The question is, where does she end up next time? And this is one of a number of races. When this race shows up again in your PPs, you're going to have to evaluate this race much differently than how it finished. You don't want to be playing horses like Tempest Storm necessarily the next time. It's just not going to work out for them. And I think there's one race after another during the course of the week where that's the case, where a horse won because it got loose, and we'll go to another race, and it's a similar situation. It's the 3rd race from the next day, the 25th, where DIXIE Night Out, a horse has just broken its maiden, I believe, for Gary Contessa in a maiden claimer sprinting. Jimmy Vegas, heavy favorite, really crazily bet, I thought, in this race. I mean, not that I thought he would win, but he was very strongly bet at 3-5 in this race. He just couldn't get the lead, and it was over.
Yeah, we'll see the 2 horses that we're looking at break out toward the inside. But a heads-up ride here from Jorge Chavez, who has DIXIE Night Out on the rail, stretching out in distance off 3 sprint races, and he takes the initiative and goes on with it, early on in the program here. But he did get to see the results of the day before, so he's probably assuming that the track is still favoring inside speed. So he does the right thing here, sends the horse on through. Jimmy Vegas is in chasing mode here throughout.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting example, and you're right. I thought that Jorge Chavez was really sort of plugged into this track on these days, and maybe it was sort of like an old-time day in the way we used to have the speed tracks and the wet tracks, which we haven't seen so much recently. But what you do in the beginning of a race absolutely dictates what happens, because if he hadn't given this horse an aggressive ride, he had been passive and let Ramon get to the front with Jimmy Vegas would have been waltzing along the lead, and he probably would have won by 8 lengths. It would have been a completely different-looking race. Jimmy Vegas, no superstar, and I'll tell you something. He's against it chasing here. I've had about enough of his act, though. I wonder, A, if he needs a turn back, or B, how good he is. But DIXIE Night Out, I don't want to be too hard on this horse. I just don't know when he's going to win a race again.
Yeah, you got a perfect setup in here, no doubt about that, and you're not going to get many better opportunities than this on a speed favoring track with the heads-up ride. And here, and we'll kind of see the horses that were chasing kind of fall apart a little bit, and some horses from well off the pace come and get the 3rd and 4th in here. But still, it's a long way back to these horses, and you see this again, with horses on speed favoring tracks where the margins just aren't that close at the finish, and that's an indication that you have a biased track.
Yeah, that's a very good point. One great classic who was battling inside, who was dropped off the screen now, was 3rd early. This is the 2nd time they tried to go long with him. Now, he does sort of have the speed to get to the front in these races. He was outposted. He didn't get exactly an aggressive ride. The only way he's ever going to win going long is trying to wire a field. He needs to turn back. I don't know what he needs to drop in class and a turn back, but certainly he's not winning rating going long.
One more race in this first segment here, and kind of an atypical race, if you will, from the rest of the week, and the fact that we had horses able to come from off the pace in this race.
Yeah, I thought that was why we should throw this one in. It's a funny race, a very dichotomous race. the 8, KAYDEROSS, ends up winning the race. And this is about the only winner you saw make this huge move. And this horse comes from way back. But the interesting thing is, while the third place finisher makes a move up the rail, finished third, there was a lot of speed signed on for this race. But the 2 horse, I think the second longest shot on the board, KAFFIEND, is the speed of the speed with that inside post and finishes second.
Yeah, once again, another example of how inside speed was favored on this track all week long, and KAFFIEND able to get away on the lead in here and actually set some fairly honest fractions, I thought, for a horse of her caliber, going 47.4 to the half mile here. So it's not a slow pace at all. Let's try to identify some of the other horses in here. We're looking at Pretty COZZY down at the rail right now in 4th in the pink silks, and then still toward the back of the pack and actually off the screen now, KAYDEROSS.
Yeah, I think this is the last time you see Pretty COZZY going up and around even money after this performance, and I don't know if she wants to go long either. Because what was her excuse? Ramon got her in the game. He set her up on the inside. She's in perfect position. It's a fast pace, but KAFFIEND was able to hold on, so why couldn't Pretty COZZY do it? So she's not going long. Maybe she doesn't like the mud. I don't know what she's doing. She's been a big disappointment. I don't want her. It was it's a very fast half, 47.94, and the final time was 1:42 at 36. So the horse in the lead comes home in 54 plus seconds the second half.
Yeah, so that just goes to show you that some other horses should have been closing in the race, and really there was only one, and that's KAYDEROSS, who's going to be splitting horses toward the back of the pack here soon. We'll have her highlighted shortly there, and there she goes toward the outside and tipping out for running room there. And really, from here on in, you're still expecting. You're still expecting it to be tough to catch any horse on this track on the lead.
Yeah, she kind of gets her feet under her, and I think it's somewhat of an optical illusion because of how quickly they went early and how slow they went late, where she finally was getting herself running a little bit, and nobody else was doing any running whatsoever. I thought Pablo Fregoso was ridden her quietly well, I thought, over the winter here. Gave her a good ride. When she broke a little slowly, got her right to the fence in the first turn, then he saved ground, angled out in the middle of the second turn, and she just ran by when nobody else was running, but nobody could catch the speed, once again, at least for second.
Yeah, and it was kind of just like the pack kind of ran evenly behind KAFFIEND there, and we did see Mustang Fever get up for third, but no one really did any significant running behind her. So, that just goes to show you. What do you do with KAYDEROSS, though, next time out? I mean, able to overcome this track. She was big price in this race, 17-1. Has she turned the corner, or is this just kind of a fluky result?
Well, I don't think it's a fluky result. The problem is she's now a non-winners of 2, and the going gets a lot tougher. Or do we see her dropping into claiming races? I don't know where she goes, but it is worth saying she did beat the bias and one of the few horses that did it. You still have to evaluate the performance, but I do think you have to move her up a little bit, considering she ran against the grain of the track, something we just didn't see.
And broke slowly, too.
Yeah, no, she did. She broke a little slow. It actually worked out for her. She got over the fence. And that's why I like the closers when they have the outside post and they break a little slow, the rider gets them right to the fence. Anyway, that does it for the first episode of Trips and Traps. Once again, that email address is tripsandtraps@NYRAinc.com. We love to hear your thoughts. We certainly could have used the help this week.
Come on back for the second segment.